The wedding reception is in full swing, champagne glasses clinking and fake smiles plastered on faces. I stand in the corner of the ballroom watching my sister Vanessa laughing with her new fiancé, a man she stole just weeks after I was forced to marry Ethan, her crippled ex she discarded. Her eyes catch mine across the room and she raises her glass in mock toast. The bitter irony burns my throat more than any alcohol could. Little does she know I've already set things in motion. The envelope in my clutch contains documents that will expose her company's fraud, the same company our father forced me to sign over to her after my unfortunate marriage. The USB hidden in my bracelet holds even more damning evidence. The clock is ticking. In exactly 30 minutes, everything changes. I feel a presence beside me and look down to see my husband, Daniel. Not Ethan. That was a mistake in my thoughts. So many names, so many betrayals to keep straight. Daniel looks up from his wheelchair, his eyes questioning. Are you ready? He asks quietly. I nod, fingers tightening around my champagne flute. I've been ready for months. 3 months earlier, I discovered the truth through fragments of conversation and carelessly left evidence. Vanessa had manipulated our father into believing Ethan, my fiancé at the time, was only interested in our family fortune. She planted fake evidence suggesting he was planning to take control of the family business through marriage to me. I remember the day Vanessa visited my apartment, her performance deserving an Oscar. She perched on my sofa, manicured hand reaching for mine in false sympathy. I know you're hurt, Sophie, but Daddy only wants what's best for you, she said, her voice dripping with artificial concern. Ethan was using you. We found the emails, the bank transfers. He was planning to take everything once you were married. The scent of her expensive perfume lingered in my apartment long after she left, a toxic cloud that made it hard to breathe. I opened all the windows despite the November chill, desperate to clear the air of her presence and her lies. It wasn't until later, scrolling through old photos on my laptop, that I found evidence of what really happened. Vanessa had always resented me for being father's academic favorite, despite her being the pretty one. Our dynamic was established early. She got the attention, I got the approval. Neither of us got what we really wanted. When I opened a forgotten folder of vacation photos from last summer, I saw it. Vanessa watching Ethan with unmistakable hunger in her eyes as he stood with his arm around me, oblivious. The timestamp matched perfectly with when things began to change between us. She had engineered my engagement's collapse by convincing Ethan I was cheating, showing him doctored photos as evidence. I found the original images and the altered versions in a hidden folder on our shared cloud storage she thought I couldn't access. I squeezed the armrest of my chair until my knuckles turned white, as I realized the depth of her betrayal. Through the window, the city lights blurred through my tears, but I refused to break down. Crying wouldn't change anything. Planning would. Father summoned me to his study the following day. I'd always hated that room. The dark wood paneling and leather-bound books he'd never read created an atmosphere designed to intimidate. I sat in the visitor's chair feeling like I was 10 years old again, waiting to be scolded for a less than perfect grade. Sophie, I've made a decision regarding your future, he said without preamble. He slid a folder across the desk. These are the documents proving Ethan's intentions. Bank statements, recordings of meetings with competitors, plans to leverage your position once you were married. I opened the folder, recognizing Vanessa's handiwork immediately. The same font choices she always used, the same style of organization. Father wouldn't notice these details, but I did. You will marry Daniel Wilson instead, he announced. Not a request, but a command. His father and I have come to an agreement. My head snapped up. Daniel Wilson? You mean the son of Wilson Pharmaceuticals? I remembered meeting him at charity events. Tall, athletic, handsome. Then the accident happened. The one who... Yes, he uses a wheelchair now. Father cut me off impatiently. His family needs our company's medical division to develop technology that might help him walk again. This marriage secures the partnership without a lengthy acquisition process. The real reason emerged like a shadow taking form. Father needed the Wilson pharmaceutical patents, and this marriage secured them without a costly acquisition. My heart was simply collateral damage in his business strategy. What if I refuse? My voice sounded small even to my own ears. Father's expression hardened. Then you lose your position in the company, your inheritance, and your place in this family. I've invested too much in your education and grooming for leadership to watch you throw it away on sentimentality. As father slid the marriage contract across his mahogany desk, the grandfather clock's ticking seemed to grow louder, counting down the moments of freedom I had left. You have 24 hours to decide, he said, but we both knew it wasn't a choice at all. I met Claire for coffee the next morning, desperate for the comfort of my best friend since college. The cafe was our special place, the rich aroma of freshly ground beans, usually a source of comfort. Today it turned my stomach as Claire stirred her latte, carefully avoiding my eyes. Maybe it's for the best, Sophie, she suggested after I explained the situation. I mean, Ethan was always a bit ambitious, wasn't he? And the Wilsons are practically American royalty. Daniel was quite the catch before his accident. Before his accident? I repeated, the words tasting sour. So now he's what? Damaged goods I should be grateful to settle for? Claire flushed. That's not what I meant. Just that sometimes parents do know best. Your father built that company from nothing. He wouldn't sacrifice your happiness without good reason. Something in her tone felt rehearsed, hollow. I changed the subject, but the unease lingered. That night, I couldn't sleep. On a hunch, I checked Claire's Instagram activity and found dozens of interactions with Vanessa going back months. Comments, likes, private jokes on posts I wasn't tagged in. Then I saw it, a photo of them together at a restaurant I didn't recognize, dated the same day Ethan received the doctored photos of my supposed infidelity. Further digging revealed text messages that had accidentally synced to my old tablet. Claire had been feeding information to Vanessa for months, reporting my every move and emotional vulnerability in exchange for a promised position in the family company. The cafe where we always met became a symbol of betrayal. The familiar barista gave me a sympathetic look the next time I went alone. Had everyone seen the deception except me? At night, I scrolled through years of photos with Claire, the weight of her betrayal making it hard to breathe. Outside, rain pounded against my windows, matching the storm building inside me. Lightning illuminated my bedroom in harsh bursts, revealing the ruins of what I'd thought was my life. I made my decision then. I would marry Daniel Wilson. Not because father demanded it, but because from this new position, I could finally see the whole board. And I was ready to play. The wedding was small and somber, held in the Wilson family chapel rather than the grand cathedral Vanessa had already booked for her wedding to Ethan. I wore an elegant but simple white dress, nothing like the princess gown hanging in my closet from my previous engagement. Daniel looked as trapped as I felt, his hands gripping his wheelchair armrest as the minister spoke of union and devotion. The tension in his jaw told me he was not a willing participant either. When our eyes met during the vows, I saw resignation mirroring my own. Father presented a modified prenuptial agreement at the last minute. If I divorced Daniel, I would lose my inheritance and my shares in the family business. My fingers trembled as I signed it, feeling the cold metal of the pen against my skin. Vanessa served as my maid of honor, her smile victorious as she adjusted my veil. I'm so happy for you, she whispered, her breath hot against my ear. This is exactly where you belong. The flash of cameras blinds me momentarily, capturing the moment for posterity and company PR. Tomorrow's business pages would show the merger of two family dynasties, sealed with vows neither party wanted to make. At the reception, I noticed Daniel watching Vanessa with hurt in his eyes. A realization hit me. They knew each other. The way she deliberately avoided his gaze, the tension when she had to address him directly. What if he was originally meant for her, not as her fiancé, but as someone she knew? The champagne tasted bitter as this new possibility formed. Ready to leave? Daniel asked after we'd fulfilled the minimum social obligations. His voice was tired, slightly hoarse from maintaining polite conversation all evening. More than ready, I answered, surprising myself with the sincerity in my tone. I moved into Daniel's modern penthouse apartment the next day. Despite my expectations of a cold arrangement or worse, he gave me space, staying in a separate bedroom across the hall from mine. This wasn't my choice either, he admitted that first night as we awkwardly navigated dinner. His voice was tight with suppressed emotion. I'm sorry you were forced into this. Why did you agree to it? I asked, curious despite myself. His laugh held no humor. The same reason you did, I imagine. The alternative was worse. At the first family dinner as a married couple, I played the role of dutiful daughter and wife. Vanessa watched me with suspicion, expecting resistance. Instead, I complimented her new promotion, the position that should have been mine. The marketing department is flourishing under your leadership, I said, raising my glass. Father made the right choice. Father seemed pleased at my apparent acceptance, relaxing his guard. The silverware clinked against fine china as we ate in false harmony. Daniel observed everything silently, his eyes missing nothing. Later that night, he asked, "Why didn't you fight back?" At dinner, when they were practically gloating. The moonlight through the penthouse windows cast half his face in shadow as he waited for my answer. For a moment, I considered maintaining my facade, but something in his expression invited honesty. Because they're expecting it, I said simply. They're prepared for resistance, anger, public scenes. They've never had to face acceptance. Daniel's eyebrows rose slightly. And that's your strategy? Acceptance? For now. I turned to go to my room, then paused. What's yours? His smile was small but genuine. Patience. I've learned a lot about patience since the accident. While everyone believed I was settling into married life, I began gathering evidence of Vanessa's corporate espionage. Being excluded from day-to-day operations gave me the perfect cover to meet with former employees who had left under suspicious circumstances, all under the guise of charity work. I established a connection with Daniel's physical therapist, Mark, who came to the penthouse 3 times a week. During one session, while Daniel was resting, Mark mentioned knowing Vanessa. You're her sister, right? I thought the name was familiar, he said, adjusting equipment. She used to come to these sessions when they first started. She did. I tried to keep my voice neutral. Mark nodded. They dated briefly before the accident. Vanessa and Daniel were together for a few months, but she disappeared right after he was injured. Never came to the hospital, not once. The revelation hit like a physical blow. She broke up with him because of the accident. The day after he regained consciousness. Mark's disapproval was clear, so some people show their true character in a crisis. Using Daniel's home office while he was at therapy, I discovered financial records proving father had diverted company funds illegally to support Vanessa's failed startup ventures. 3 businesses that collapsed despite millions in anonymous investment. The money trail was carefully hidden, but still traceable if you knew where to look. The first piece of my plan fell into place. I anonymously sent evidence of Vanessa's smallest transgression to the company board, just enough to start an investigation without revealing my hand. The tension headache that had been my constant companion eased slightly as I took the first step. At the quarterly board meeting, which I attended as Daniel's proxy, a role father couldn't object to without raising questions, questions arose about information leaks. Vanessa's face flushed as attention turned to her department. The air conditioning vent above blew cold air on my neck as I watched her squirm. These allegations are baseless, she insisted, voice rising slightly. Marketing requires external communication. That's not the same as leaking proprietary information. Nevertheless, said Harrison Blackwell, the eldest board member, we need an investigation. Protocol demands it. Father called me that evening, voice tight with controlled anger, asking if I knew anything. I played innocent, the phone cool against my cheek as I lied convincingly for the first time in my life. I'm as surprised as you are, I said. I've been focused on getting to know Daniel and adjusting to married life. Keep it that way, Father warned. This family doesn't need more complications right now. Vanessa appeared at my door unannounced the next day, barging past me into the penthouse. This has your fingerprints all over it, she hissed, pacing the living room. I don't know how you did it, but I know it was you. Daniel rolled into the room, expression calm. Is everything all right? I heard raised voices. Vanessa spun toward him. Tell your wife to back off from company business. She's causing problems. Sophie has been here with me, Daniel said mildly. We've been quite busy adjusting to our new situation. Haven't we, dear? The endearment, our first, caught me off guard, but I nodded. I've hardly had time to think about work. As Vanessa left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame, Daniel turned to me with new interest. There's more to you than they think, isn't there? The question hung between us as a tentative trust began to form. Maybe there's more to both of us, I answered, noticing how his hands gripped the wheelchair arms, not with the weakness his family portrayed to mine, but with controlled strength. Father announced Vanessa would take over as CEO when he retired next year, a position he had always implied would be mine after I completed my MBA. The news hit like a physical blow during the monthly family dinner. Naturally, we'd planned for Sophie to step into the role, Father said, as if I weren't sitting right there. But her marriage responsibilities make that impractical now. Vanessa gloated subtly, mentioning plans to restructure departments where my few remaining allies worked. Fresh perspectives are essential for growth, she said, eyes sliding to me. Don't you agree, Sophie? The taste of fear was metallic in my mouth as I realized she planned to eliminate anyone loyal to me. Absolutely, I managed to say. Change can be very illuminating. The following week, Claire was awarded a director position despite having minimal qualifications. She couldn't meet my eyes during the announcement at the company party. The champagne in my hand lost its bubbles by the time I set down the untouched glass. That night, Daniel found me on the penthouse balcony, tears streaming silently down my face. Without words, he positioned his wheelchair beside me, offering quiet solidarity as the city lights blurred below us. I built my whole life around that company, I whispered. Every degree, every internship, every relationship sacrificed for what Father promised would be mine. And now you're left with nothing but a husband you didn't choose, Daniel said softly. I turned to him, suddenly ashamed. I didn't mean... I know. He reached for my hand, his touch tentative. We've both lost more than they realize. His hand was warm against mine, the first genuine human contact I'd felt in months. We stayed like that, watching the city below, until the chill drove us inside. Daniel shared his story over dinner the next evening. He was an Olympic hopeful before the accident, training for the decathlon when the car crash shattered his spine. Vanessa and I dated for about 4 months, he said, his voice steady, but his hands trembling slightly as he poured more wine. She was attracted to the prestige, I think. Dating an Olympic prospect with the right family connections checked all her boxes. And after the accident? I prompted gently. She visited the hospital once, the day I woke up. Told me she wasn't cut out for this kind of thing, and left. Never even looked back. His smile was bitter. Your sister has a talent for strategic exits. I confessed my suspicions about why our marriage was arranged, the medical technology his family controls. Surprisingly, he already knew. My father is as manipulative as yours, he admitted. He saw an opportunity when your family approached about the medical division partnership. Why license the technology when you can own the company through marriage? We started having dinner together each night, no longer avoiding each other in the penthouse. I discovered Daniel was an excellent cook, something he'd learned during rehabilitation as physical therapy for his hands. It gives me control, he explained, deftly chopping vegetables. After months of depending on others for everything, being able to feed myself, to create something, it matters. The scent of garlic and herbs became a comfort rather than a reminder of my trapped situation. I began to look forward to evenings, to the sound of his wheelchair approaching as he brought plates to the table. When Daniel showed me his physical therapy progress, he could stand briefly with support. I was genuinely happy for him. He asked me to keep it secret, especially from my family. Let them underestimate me a little longer, he said, a conspiratorial smile forming. I've learned there are advantages to being invisible. Daniel and I formed an alliance, combining our knowledge. He introduced me to his cousin who worked in digital security. The cousin's apartment smelled of coffee and electronics as he taught me how to gather digital evidence without leaving traces. Corporate espionage detection software looks for specific patterns, he explained, fingers flying across the keyboard. Here's how to work around them. I faked illness to miss work, instead going to meet with one of Father's former partners who was pushed out of the company. In a dimly lit restaurant booth, he provided documentation of questionable acquisitions that damaged competitor companies out of spite. Your father destroyed lives to build his empire, the former partner said, sliding a flash drive across the table. Not just businesses, families, marriages, reputations. It's all here. Using Daniel's family connections, I secured meetings with board members, ostensibly to discuss charity initiatives. Instead, I subtly planted seeds of doubt about Vanessa's leadership capabilities and father's succession plan. I've heard concerning reports about forward-looking projections. I mentioned casually to one board member over coffee. But of course, that's Vanessa's area now, not mine. At home, Daniel's therapy was progressing rapidly. He could now stand for several minutes and take a few supported steps. We celebrated privately, the secret creating an intimate bond between us as we shared a bottle of wine on the balcony, the night air cool on our skin. To small victories, he toasted, our glasses clinking in the darkness. And bigger ones to come, I added, our eyes meeting with shared purpose. An anonymous tip, orchestrated by me, led to an external audit of the company's acquisition practices. Father was forced to explain decisions to the board, and for the first time, his authority was questioned openly. These practices expose us to significant legal liability, the lead auditor explained in a meeting I managed to attend as an observer. The pattern suggests deliberate intent to harm competitors rather than strategic business decisions. Vanessa called me screaming afterward, accusing me of undermining her position. I remained calm, the phone slightly away from my ear as her voice rose to a shriek. "You've always been jealous of me," she ranted, "but this is pathetic, Sophie. You're married to a cripple and living off his family's charity while trying to sabotage mine." Her cruelty sparked genuine anger. "Is that how you see Daniel, as a cripple? No wonder he saw through you so quickly." There was a telling pause before she hung up. Father appeared at our penthouse unannounced that evening, demanding to know if I was behind the audit. Daniel intervened, positioning his wheelchair between us. "How could Sophie orchestrate this?" he asked reasonably. "You've excluded her from company matters for months. She doesn't even have access to the documents in question." As Father left, frustration evident in his stiff posture, Daniel reached for my hand. The unexpected touch sent warmth up my arm. "We make a good team," he said quietly, his eyes holding a question neither of us was ready to answer. Vanessa announced her engagement to Robert, a man I briefly dated in college before introducing him to her. The betrayal was minor compared to others, but reopened old wounds. The engagement party invitations arrived scented with her signature perfume, a deliberate taunt. "Of course we'll attend," Daniel said when I showed him the invitation. "We couldn't possibly miss such an important family event." His tone made me look up sharply. There was a glint in his eye I'd come to recognize. He was planning something. At the engagement celebration, I overheard Claire and Vanessa laughing about how easily I was manipulated into the marriage with Daniel. "She always was the obedient one," Vanessa snickered, unaware I was on the other side of the decorative screen. The champagne flute nearly cracked in my grip. "Will you record her reaction when she finds out about the company restructuring?" Claire asked eagerly. "I want to see her face when she learns we're dismantling her pet project." "The children's hospital wing?" Vanessa laughed. "Already done. We're announcing the funds are being redirected to my new cosmetics division next week. My project, the pediatric rehabilitation center I'd worked on for 2 years before my marriage, was being sacrificed for Vanessa's vanity project. The betrayal was professional and personal, striking at both my work and the children who would lose their chance at treatment. Father presented Vanessa with grandmother's ring, promised to me since childhood. The diamonds caught the light as she flaunted it in my direction. My throat tightened with the effort of maintaining a neutral expression. Daniel noticed my distress and created an excuse for us to leave early. In the car, the privacy divider up, I finally let myself cry. He reached across the seat, his hand finding mine in the darkness as the city lights streaked past the window. "They're taking everything," I whispered. "Even the children's wing." "No," Daniel's voice was firm. "They're trying to take everything. There's a difference." He pulled me closer, and for the first time, I let myself lean against him, drawing strength from his solidity. Daniel revealed he'd been keeping his therapy progress secret from everyone, including his own father. He could now walk short distances without support. We practiced in the privacy of the penthouse, my hand on his elbow as he took increasingly confident steps. "My doctor said I'd never walk again," he explained as we moved slowly around the living room. "I believed them at first. Then I got angry, and anger is a powerful motivator. We discussed our shared predicament late into the night. The realization formed. We were both pawns in our family's games. The city skyline formed a backdrop through the windows as we pledged to help each other escape. I initially resented you, Daniel confessed one evening. I thought you were like Vanessa, cold, calculating, willing to step on anyone for advancement. I admitted. Before all this, I probably was exactly that. Success was the only language my family understood, so it became my native tongue. He studied me in the low light. But not anymore? Now I understand the cost, I said, and I'm not willing to pay it. I found myself looking forward to coming home, the penthouse no longer feeling like a prison. When Daniel greeted me with dinner prepared, the domestic scene stirred feelings I hadn't expected to develop. We should talk about what happens after, he said one night over pasta. After what? After we take everything back, he said simply. What do you want then, Sophie? When you're free to choose? The question caught me off guard. I'd been so focused on revenge that I hadn't considered what came next. Freedom, yes. But to do what? To be with whom? I looked at Daniel across the table, seeing him clearly, his strength, his intelligence, his quiet dignity in the face of loss. Something shifted inside me, a recognition I wasn't ready to name. One step at a time, I said instead. First, we take back what's ours. I met secretly with the board's most influential member, presenting evidence of both Father's and Vanessa's misconduct. The coffee shop was loud enough to cover our conversation, but I still spoke barely above a whisper, hyper-aware of potentially being discovered. I've suspected for some time, the board member said, reviewing the documents. But without proof, my hands were tied. And now, I asked, now we have options. He closed the folder. The question is, what do you want from this, Sophie? Justice, I said without hesitation, and the company returned to its original mission. Daniel arranged a meeting with his father, renegotiating the terms of their family's partnership with my father's company. He recorded the conversation where his father admitted the original deal was predatory, designed to take advantage of my father's desperation for the medical technology. You used my condition to manipulate them, Daniel said, his voice controlled but tight with anger. Business is business, son, his father replied dismissively. Besides, you got a wife out of the deal. Pretty one, too. Could have done worse. She's more than a pretty face, Daniel replied. Something you'd know if you'd bothered to look past appearances. Together, we compiled a comprehensive file of evidence: financial misconduct, corporate espionage, internal sabotage, and the personal manipulations that led to our marriage. The printer hummed late into the night as we assembled the documents. The night before Vanessa's wedding, Daniel stood without assistance for the first time and took several steps toward me. The milestone felt symbolic as we prepared to reclaim our lives. The city lights shimmered through happy tears as he pulled me gently into an embrace. No matter what happens tomorrow, he whispered against my hair as, we've already won this. His heartbeat was steady against my cheek, and I realized with sudden clarity that somewhere along the way, this had become more than an alliance of convenience. Much more. At Vanessa's wedding reception, I timed the release of information perfectly. Board members received evidence of misconduct as Father gave his speech. The buzz of phone notifications rippled through the crowd like a wave. To my beautiful daughter, Father was saying, raising his glass, who has always exemplified our family's values of integrity and... The first board member stood and walked out, then another and another. Father faltered mid-speech, confusion spreading across his face as he watched them exit. Vanessa's new husband received proof of her infidelity, including a recent encounter with Claire's boyfriend. His face drained of color as he scrolled through the images on his phone, then abruptly walked away from the head table. Father was called away by urgent messages from the board. Through the ballroom's open doors, I glimpsed him arguing frantically into his phone, gesturing with uncharacteristic loss of control. It was time. I nodded to Daniel, who was seated beside me, and he squeezed my hand once before pushing his wheelchair back from the table. As chaos erupted around us, Daniel stood up from his wheelchair. Gasps spread through the crowd as he walked slowly but steadily to stand beside me. Vanessa's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor, a perfect symbol of her shattered control. You, she began, but words seemed to fail her. Yes, me, Daniel said calmly. The cripple you discarded, the man you thought wasn't worth your time once he couldn't stand beside you in photos. That's not fair, she tried, but her protest sounded hollow even to her own ears. Fairness was never your concern, I said, stepping forward. But it's mine, and justice too. As security escorted Father and Vanessa to a private room to deal with the board's emergency concerns, Daniel and I walked out together, his steps measured but determined, my arm linked through his. Did you see her face? I whispered once we were in the car. Daniel's laugh was genuine, releasing months of tension. I saw everyone's faces. I don't think I'll ever forget that moment. He took my hand, bringing it to his lips in a gesture that sent warmth spreading through me. But yours was the only one that mattered. Daniel revealed his full truth the next day. He came from old money far exceeding my family's wealth. His dependence on my father's company's medical technology was fabricated to allow his father to gain access to patents they could have simply purchased. My father saw an opportunity and took it, he explained as we sat in the penthouse living room. Your father's company was valuable but vulnerable. The quickest way to control it was through marriage. Me to Vanessa originally, but she balked when I was injured. So I was the consolation prize, I said, trying to process this new information. On paper, yes. Daniel moved from his wheelchair to sit beside me on the sofa. In reality, you were the unexpected variable that changed everything. I discovered my grandmother had left me a separate inheritance in a protected trust that activated upon my 30th birthday, just 3 months away. Father had kept this information from me, but Daniel's lawyer uncovered it during our evidence gathering. It's substantial, the lawyer explained during our meeting, enough to give you complete financial independence and seed money for any venture you choose to pursue. The board investigation revealed Father had been embezzling from the company for years to cover Vanessa's failed business ventures and extravagant lifestyle. The company was worth half what everyone believed. Daniel's family stepped in as a major investor to save the company from collapse, effectively taking control. The power balance shifted overnight, like a sudden change in atmospheric pressure before a storm. My father may be ruthless, Daniel said, but he's a businessman first. He recognizes a good investment when he sees one. The news of our family's reversal of fortune broke publicly 3 days after Vanessa's wedding. Business channels featured the story prominently, complete with footage of Father leaving the office with a box of personal items, security escorting him out. Social circles that once embraced Vanessa now shunned her. Her wedding photos disappeared from society pages, replaced by coverage of the scandal. Her calls to former friends went unanswered as fair-weather relationships evaporated in the heat of controversy. Claire attempted damage control, claiming she was manipulated too. Her desperate texts piled up unanswered on my phone, each one more pleading than the last. I didn't understand what was happening, her final message read. You were always the smarter one, Sophie. Please give me a chance to explain. I deleted it without replying. Daniel introduced me to his actual social circle, influential figures in business, politics, and philanthropy who had been helping us behind the scenes. At a charity gala, I was welcomed as an equal, while Father and Vanessa were noticeably absent from the guest list. You've made quite an impression, Daniel murmured as we moved through the crowd. They're all asking how I managed to win you over. And what do you tell them? I asked, suddenly curious about how he viewed our relationship. His smile was warm, genuine. That I'm the luckiest man in the room, wheelchair or not. I learned Daniel had deliberately downplayed his connections. His wheelchair had made him invisible to people like my father and sister, allowing him to observe and gather intelligence unnoticed. People reveal themselves when they think you're no threat, he explained. Your sister and father never censored themselves around me. They assumed my physical limitations reflected intellectual ones. My own skills and education, dismissed by my family, were recognized by Daniel's associates. I was offered a position with a prestigious consulting firm based on merit rather than family connection. The leather chair in the interview room felt like a throne as I accepted the offer. At a board meeting, I presented a restructuring plan for the family company, Board members who once ignored me now listened attentively. The projector light illuminated their faces as they nodded in agreement with my points. The Children's Rehabilitation Center will be our flagship project, I concluded, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because it represents our commitment to innovation with integrity. The vote was unanimous in favor of my proposal. The board appointed me interim CEO of the family company. The leather chair that was once Father's engulfed me as I took my place at the head of the conference table for the first time. This is temporary, I clarified to the board, until we find the right permanent leadership. My focus will be stabilizing the company and restoring its reputation. Daniel's medical technology company merged with my family's medical division, creating an innovative new venture that promised breakthroughs in rehabilitation science. Our genuine partnership became the foundation of a successful business collaboration. We should call it Phoenix, Daniel suggested as we reviewed the merger documents, rising from the ashes of both our families' mistakes. Vanessa's new marriage crumbled under scrutiny and financial pressure. Her husband filed for annulment, claiming fraud. Papers were delivered to her while she was having lunch at the cafe where she once mocked my situation. Father faced potential criminal charges for financial misconduct. His lawyer arranged a meeting to ask if I'd speak on his behalf. The irony was palpable as he waited nervously in the visitor's chair across from my desk. My client recognizes his mistakes, the lawyer began. He's willing to make amends, including a public apology and resignation from any remaining positions. In exchange, he's asking for your support in reducing the charges to civil penalties rather than criminal prosecution. I studied my father's lawyer, noting the expensive suit that couldn't quite hide the desperation in his posture. Behind him, through the glass walls of my office, business continued without interruption. People who had once scurried to please my father now barely glanced his way. "I'll need time to consider this request," I said finally, "and I'll need to consult with the board." The lawyer nodded, relief visible in the slight loosening of his shoulders. "Of course, we appreciate any consideration you can give the matter." After he left, I stood at the window overlooking the city, the same view my father had enjoyed for decades while making decisions that shaped and sometimes destroyed lives. The power felt different in my hands, heavier, more consequential. My assistant buzzed to let me know Daniel had arrived for our lunch date. I smiled, the first genuine expression since the meeting began. Father visited our home the following weekend, aged decades in mere months. His suit, once impeccably tailored, hung loosely on his frame. Dark circles underscored eyes that had lost their intimidating sharpness. "Sophie," he began, voice uncharacteristically hesitant, "I want to apologize." "For which part?" I asked, remaining standing rather than inviting him to sit. "Using me as a business pawn? Choosing Vanessa over me at every opportunity? Or lying about grandmother's trust?" He flinched at each question. "For all of it. I convinced myself I was building a legacy that would benefit everyone eventually. I didn't see the damage I was causing along the way." He placed a velvet box on the coffee table between us, grandmother's ring retrieved from Vanessa. "This was always meant for you. I'm sorry I gave it to her." The diamonds caught the afternoon light, sparkling with the same brilliance I remembered from childhood when grandmother would let me try it on. "Where did you get this?" Vanessa would never give it up willingly. She had to sell most of her jewelry to cover legal fees. "I bought it back." He looked up, his expression open and vulnerable for the first time in my memory. "I know it doesn't make up for anything, but I wanted you to have it." I didn't touch the box. "Thank you for returning it, but a ring doesn't erase decades of manipulation." "I know." He stood, suddenly looking every one of his 68 years. "I hope someday you might be willing to have a relationship again. Father and daughter, not business associates. I'll wait for that day, however long it takes." After he left, Daniel found me still staring at the ring box. "Are you okay?" he asked, coming to stand beside me. "I think I am," I said, surprised to find it was true. For the first time, I saw him as just a man, not the titan who controlled my life. Daniel picked up the box, opening it to examine the ring. "It's beautiful." "It is," I agreed. "But I don't think I want to wear it just yet. Too many memories." He closed the box and set it aside, then took my hands in his. Some legacies aren't worth preserving. We can build our own. Vanessa called the next day, crying, claiming she'd changed and understood the harm she caused. We're still sisters, she pleaded. Through the phone, I heard the echoes of an empty apartment, all her luxury possessions sold to pay legal fees. I've got nothing left, Sophie, she sobbed. My marriage is over, my reputation is ruined, and I'm facing possible charges. I need you. Like I needed you when father forced me to marry a man I didn't know? I asked, keeping my voice level. Like I needed you when you convinced Ethan I was unfaithful? I made terrible mistakes, she admitted. I was jealous of you, your intelligence, father's respect, the way people trusted you. It ate me alive until all I could think about was taking what you had. I closed my eyes, remembering all the times I'd envied her beauty, her social ease, her ability to charm everyone she met. We'd been set against each other from childhood, both wanting what the other had. I understand jealousy, Vanessa. What I don't understand is cruelty. Please, her voice broke. You're the only family I have left who might forgive me. I thought about forgiveness, about the weight of carrying anger versus the risk of trusting again. I can't give you what you're asking for. Not yet, maybe not ever. But I won't stand in the way of you rebuilding your life. What does that mean? She asked, a hint of the old calculation in her tone. It means I won't press additional charges for the things you did to me personally. The business matters are for the board to decide, and it means we can revisit this conversation in a year if you've genuinely changed. There was a long silence before she spoke again. I guess that's more than I deserve. For once, we agreed on something. Claire sent a handwritten letter, apologizing and asking for redemption. The familiar handwriting brought back memories of a friendship that once seemed genuine. The letter sat on my desk for days as I considered my response. Friendship requires trust, I finally wrote back. And trust, once broken, doesn't mend easily. I wish you well in your future endeavors, but our paths diverge here. The response was simple, final, and brought an unexpected sense of peace. Not every relationship deserves the effort of rebuilding. Daniel's father also sought forgiveness for using our marriage as a business strategy. Unlike the others, his remorse seemed genuine, his voice breaking when he admitted, I never expected you two would teach us all about integrity. He's trying, Daniel said after his father left. More than he's ever tried at anything that didn't involve money. Does that matter to you? I asked. Daniel considered the question. It does. Not enough to forget, but enough to consider a different kind of relationship moving forward. Limited, cautious, but not severed completely. I nodded, understanding his position better than I expected. Family is complicated. Extremely, he agreed, pulling me close. Which is why I'm grateful we're building our own version now. When the board asked if I would consider taking the CEO position permanently, I surprised everyone, including myself, by declining. I have other priorities now, I explained. The company needs leadership that isn't burdened by the past. I'll remain on the board, but my focus is shifting to the Phoenix project. The rehabilitation center that began as my pet project had evolved into something much more significant, a revolutionary approach to recovery that combined Daniel's family's technology with innovative therapy methods. Early results showed promise far beyond our initial expectations. Father asked to return to the company in an advisory role during the transition. I looked him directly in the eyes and simply said, no. The silence that followed was more powerful than any explanation could be. When Vanessa begged for financial help months later, claiming family obligation, I responded with the same words she used when I begged her to stop the arranged marriage. Unfortunately, that's not possible. Her sharp intake of breath was audible through the phone. At a family event, a cousin's wedding, Vanessa attempted a public reconciliation, approaching with tears and open arms. In front of everyone who once witnessed my humiliation, I stepped back and calmly said, please respect my boundaries. The quiet dignity of the refusal left a more lasting impression than any dramatic scene could have. Daniel and I chose to have a private vow renewal ceremony on a beach at sunset, 6 months after the scandal broke. The ocean breeze carried away the last of the resentment that once clouded our beginning. We wrote our own vows, genuine this time, sand cool beneath our bare feet. I never expected to find love in an arrangement designed to trap us both, Daniel said, his voice steady as he held my hands. But the universe has a sense of humor, and what was meant to cage us set us both free instead. When I placed the ring on his finger, not my grandmother's heirloom, but a simple band we chose together, I felt the final pieces of my old life fall away. To choosing each other, I said, every day from now on. We established a foundation supporting education for disadvantaged students, turning our negative experience into something positive. At the opening event, a young scholarship recipient hugged me, whispering thanks. The scent of hope replaced the bitterness I had carried for so long. I completed my MBA and launched a consulting practice helping family businesses navigate succession without destroying relationships. The irony wasn't lost on me as I helped others avoid the traps that caught my family. Daniel's recovery continued, though he occasionally used a cane for support during long events. We joked that it made him look distinguished. Like a Victorian gentleman, I teased as we strolled through our garden, plants we selected together now taking root. 2 years after our world imploded and rebuilt itself, we traveled to the Mediterranean coast, staying in a villa overlooking the sea. Each morning began with coffee on the terrace, the scent of salt water and jasmine replacing the memories of betrayal and corporate politics. I received an interesting offer yesterday, Daniel mentioned one morning, passing me a fresh croissant. The Olympic Committee wants me to head their adaptive sports division. That's perfect for you, I said, genuinely excited. Are you considering it? He nodded. I think I am. What about you? Are you ready to step back from the foundation for a while if we relocate to Switzerland? The question required no thought. The foundation has a strong team now, and I can consult from anywhere. I smiled, reaching for his hand. Besides, I've always wanted to learn French. Daniel's medical technology helped others with similar injuries. At a rehabilitation center opening in Geneva 6 months later, patients thanked him with stories of their progress. The gratitude in their eyes reflected the purpose we'd found beyond revenge. We maintained appropriate but distant relationships with our families, setting healthy boundaries that were now respected. Holiday gatherings were civil, focusing on the future rather than the past. As the sun set on our villa balcony, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Daniel pulled me close. Would you do it all again? He asked against my hair. Knowing what you know now? I considered the journey, the pain that led to unexpected happiness, and answered honestly, every step. Below us, waves crashed against the shore, constant and cleansing. Daniel turned me to face him, his eyes reflecting the fading light. I have something for you, he said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Inside wasn't a diamond or precious gem, but a simple key. What's this? I asked. The key to our new house in Geneva, he explained. I wanted you to be the one to open the door the first time we go there, to start our next chapter. I closed my hand around the key, feeling its weight, the weight of possibilities rather than obligations. I love you, I said, the words still new enough to feel miraculous each time. I love you too, he answered, pulling me close as the last rays of sun disappeared below the horizon. More than I ever thought possible from an arrangement that was supposed to be temporary. The irony wasn't lost on either of us, that our families had forced us together thinking they were punishing us, only to give us the greatest gift instead. As darkness fell and stars appeared above the Mediterranean, I leaned against Daniel's shoulder, finally at peace with the twisted path that had led us here. Sometimes, I reflected, the most beautiful journeys begin with the worst intentions. And sometimes what looks like the end is really just the beginning.